Hello everybody and welcome to the Sovereign Village Project. Let's talk about lawns. It's a sticky issue and contentious one for many people, and understandably so. The yard is a fixture in the American landscape and not necessarily always a good one. It's often done quite destructively and it's rooted in traditions of aristocracy and even slavery. That doesn't mean that having a yard means that you are a slave owner, but it was generally, the idea was that if you had grass growing in front of your house and it wasn't fenced, you didn't have sheep grazing or anything like that, not only was somebody maintaining that for you, but also you didn't have to grow your own food. And that was seen as a sign of wealth. Not growing your food meant you were in the upper class. So that's rooted in a pretty bad idea, because we should all be growing food regardless of our status in the hierarchy. I eat food every day that a billionaire doesn't get to eat. My food is better than his food. He cannot access the same nutrition that I can in my food because I garden it and I know every single thing that goes into it. So everybody needs to leave behind that concept of aristocracy and of there being some benefit to not growing your own food. But anyway, so it comes from a pretty negative tradition, and then lawns are often managed in a negative way. We love to dump chemicals. There's this strange mental illness, some kind of strange obsessive odd behavior where people have this need to strangle out any life except for fescue lawn. It's really common in the suburbs, and I'll never understand why people are out there working all day long to just kill stuff. They're just trying to slaughter the dandelions, kill anything that's not fescue green, monoculture lawn. It's like, to me it seems very indicative of a mental problem, the way we treat lawns in America. But that being said, they're not inherently evil. Lawns can be good places and they can have a good reasons for their existence. They can of course be places for children to play, for sports and events to be held. Here in the South, if I walk into that forest, I'm going to be covered in ticks in seconds. So I have to put permethrin chemicals to get rid of them or fight them or deal with that tick problem. And so a lawn offers a place that's less friendly to ticks, where you can go out and be outdoors but not be dealing with that pest issue. So that's a good reason for its existence. Also, you often don't want to have trees right next to your house because they can threaten it during storms and fall over it, so you will inevitably have some light there and some space for a lawn, but you also may have too much shade. I have way too much tree cover in most of this area to actually be growing anything productively in a typical agricultural fashion. And I can't grow trees in close proximity to the house. And then I also have a septic field here, so I can't plant anything deeply taprooted. So this is gonna be lawn. In many cases, we're stuck with lawn, either because of those practical reasons or because of HOAs or whatever. And so if you have a lawn, that does not mean it needs to be improperly managed or an unproductive space. In fact, quite the opposite. My lawn produces about as much food as my actively managed garden does. Food and medicine, and food for my animals as well. My lawn is a very, very productive space. So I want to show you in this video some of the uses that you can use your lawn for, how easy it is and how incredibly productive it is. So I can walk up to really any patch of my lawn here and find a tremendous amount of food. We have wild garlic. We have, I forget the scientific name. As a kid we always called it sticky weed, but it's medicinal and edible, and I use it constantly in dishes. We have clovers, which can actually be human food as well as animal food. We have dandelion, which is about the single greatest thing you can put in your body. The vitamin K and A and the medicinal properties and the taste. The greens are delicious and just absolutely everything. The flowers are a fun, colorful addition to your dishes. And you can eat every single part of it down to the root. Every part of the dandelion is edible. So there are, probably in this small patch of lawn, there's at least a dozen edible plants that I can identify. Many of them are also very, very medicinal. And oftentimes a lawn is pretty neglected in a good way, in which the resources are not extracted from the soil. They just kind of get looped back in, especially if you're mowing it with a mulcher and just returning that surplus back to the land. And so they're full of nutrients because they're coming from good soil, and that means they're going to be better medicinals and they're going to be better food and they're going to taste better as well. So right off the bat, foraging from your lawn, it's not just a little side thing that you can do to get an occasional for fun. Like, we think of foraging as this thing you go out and do on weekends. Foraging should be an active part of your diet every single day and every single meal. It is out here, and we're very healthy as a result. And foraging can be done sustainably. Obviously in the lawn, this is not a natural ecosystem. This is a disturbed ecosystem, so I don't feel bad about harvesting from it on a regular basis, but I also am making sure that I do it in a way that is going to keep, because it's going to keep propagating those plants. I don't want to take all of my edible plants right away. Let's just show you this little spider hanging out on the lawn here. He's just hanging out listening to the video. Maybe learning a thing or two. You don't have to do so in a destructive manner. So I actually treat my lawn like a farm. Although I don't plant anything here, I do use it to produce my food, and I add to it as a result. So I actually take my compost, and then I find something I like this plantain, And I give a little back, and now that plantain will get way bigger than the others. It'll be healthier, it'll be pest-free. And by just doing a simple little intervention, I've made so much food out of this yard because these are all the plants that grow by themselves. They're weeds. They don't need my management. Any management I do like that, number one, it's simple. Number two, it just boosts it and makes it really healthy. This is one that has some manure on it, and look how healthy this plantain is. This is an incredible edible plant as well as an incredible medicinal plant. It's great for bug bites, insect stings. It will work better than most medicines for those purposes when used correctly. So I am fertilizing and I'm adding to those plants specifically, and I did that with wild garlic this spring, and that wild garlic now is huge and it's delicious, it's sweeter. It just changes every dish and makes it incredibly tasty and incredibly nutritious. So you can farm your yard like that very easy. There's no easier way to get massive amounts of food. You're just focusing on the things that are already growing naturally, and you will generate so much bounty. By the way, these things like plantain and dandelion greens, you add those into a salad and you will never want a store-bought salad again. There's so many cool flavors inside of that salad. So that's one main obvious thing that you can do with your lawn, is get a ton of food production going off it. Now, if it's a septic field and you have that ick factor about taking food from the septic field, which many people do, there are still ways to produce food from it. The idea is, if you're running it over a waste stream like a septic field and you want to remove yourself from that a little bit more, you want to add another process. So maybe instead of eating food right off of it, what you'll do instead is you'll feed an animal. The animal will eat the food off of that. That will be processed through the plant and through the animal, and then you'll eat the animal. And that's where tractors come very much in handy. You can be running rabbits, chickens, quail, ducks, all sorts of animals in these tractors, or doing it on a larger scale with rotational grazing of sheep and other animals. And you can run them over these abundant lawns, and they will also return their food right back to it in the form of manure and urine. And if done properly, you will not lay waste to your yard. Obviously, you don't want to overgraze, and you want to study some of the Salatin kind of knowledge out there about how to properly rotationally graze. But on a very small scale, a small group of rabbits or chickens can be mostly fed off of a lawn, and they're producing your food, they're producing your compost and your manures for your garden, and they're doing a lot of management tasks when it comes to insects and things like that. So you're also managing the insects in your lawn, you're fertilizing your lawn, so that's a great way to use a lawn and a septic field. Two great ways to get a ton of benefits out of a lawn. This is also my mulch system. There's a reason this lawn is very tall right now, and it's not just because I'm lazy. That might be part of it. There's actually two reasons I'm letting this grow so long. One is that I want these flower heads, I want this stuff to be seeding. I don't want just fescue. I want all of the biodiversity in here so it's healthy and full of perennial abundance for the animals. So by doing that, everything's being allowed to seed itself, but I'm also bringing in pollinators, and the pollinators, they're my employees. They work for me all day long. They ask nothing in return except I leave them a little bit of food. And all day long they're pollinating my fruit trees and my other plants, and they're working for me for free. So that's called passive income right there, is by just leaving something for the bees and the butterflies to chew on. And so this is acting as a pollination system for me, but it's also acting as a mulch system. So I let it grow tall. I cut it with the mower. The mower is actually the only machinery I regularly use in my system here. And then it gets added to the compost pile. And it's also a mulch system in that these trees overhang it. And it's really hard to gather leaves and sticks from the forest because it's brushy, it's hard to get in there with a rake. But on this perimeter here where there are trees overhanging, all of those leaves fall right onto the lawn. I rake them up and they go right into the compost. So this lawn produces me, this very small lawn produces thousands of dollars worth of compost, good, very good compost every year. And I'm also restoring that soil because of our septic system, so I don't have to feel bad about taking all of that nutrition and all of the fertility off of it and then using it in other places. It is getting restored to the land. So this is such an abundant place, this yard. It's producing food that I eat every single day. Pretty much every meal I have has at least a garnish from the yard, but usually something pretty significant. I'm feeding my animals off it, I'm cutting my grain bill, I'm making my animals way more healthy because they're getting more biodiversity in the diet. I never have diseases with my animals, ever. I never have problems. They're just so healthy and they get to eat such a wide variety of food. Just like humans, they're eating their medicine, which is a lesson we could take from. I'm getting all of those benefits. I'm getting the mulch, I'm getting the compost, and there's so little management. It's less management than a traditional yard. If I was trying to strangle all the life out of it and mow it constantly and add fertilizers and add chemicals and poisons into the watersheds, I would put in lots of labor and I would get no yield. Using these simple things like dropping compost on edibles and learning how to forage and learning how to identify the forageable plants. I get medicine, I get food every single day. I feed my animals, I get so much nutrition. The nutrition that is in foraged foods is so far above and beyond anything else that you would get out of a typical, even a farm food that you garden yourself. So anyway, I hope that gives you all some ideas of how to use your yards better and how to make them abundant places that feed you, that feed your family, and everyone around you. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, be well, and happy homesteading.